I don't need to tell you what Edgerunners is.
Oh, David, my man, what's going on?
The smash hit anime by Trigger that revives Cyberpunk and saves CDPR's skin. Everyone in every multiverse has made a video talking about how successful it's been, but what nobody seems interested in explaining is why it's so successful. Being animated by Trigger helps, but let's remember that is the same studio who made Supernatural Battles and perhaps the most mid-comedy of all time, Inferno Cop. Because what the world needed in 2012 was a worse Aqua Team Hunger Force. The success of Edgerunners is easy to write off as a perfect storm. The right people in the right places at the right times. But it's not that simple. In fact, it's a story of an undying commitment to an idea, and an example of how to write a love letter to a world. But before we get to love letters, let's talk about the crappy knockoffs. If your birth year starts with a 1, you're very familiar with the profound crapness of video game movies. In the 20-teens, production companies saw the revenues that video games were pulling in and started pumping out these trash heaps. Whether it be Agent 47, where we're taking on an adventure by bargain bin Johnny Sins to kill someone for some reason.
You're locked in here with me, and I'm the one with the gun.
No, Mr. Sanders. You are locked in here with me.
Or the Assassin's Creed movie, what I lovingly refer to as the Ass movie. The movie that was so bad, not even professional actors could look excited about it.
So how much of Assassin's Creed were you both aware about before you decided to become a part of this film?
I knew the title, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
But that's it. I didn't know anything about the game.
Live-action adaptations of video games are rough, to say the least, but the animated adaptations get even rougher, like Dead Space Aftermath. If you guys thought Chainsaw Man had bad CG, oh boy.
Scans confirm the target has been destroyed.
This came out the same year as Steins Gate. What makes this whole show even weirder is that they change animation styles halfway through with a character flip and it looks kind of okay, if a little Cartoon Network-y. Or how about one of my personal favorites, Mass Effect Paragon Lost? Nobody remembers this movie, mostly because its shoes have been filled and exceeded by Mass Effect Andromeda.
I think you're cute and I like seeing you up here. Oh my goodness, right? Or also, the accent. The accent is, I mean, it's not the only thing, but, okay, I should just go over there to the piloting thing.
But it's a hack job in its own right. It is more Mass Effect, though, and if there is one thing that will make Mass Effect fans look past glaring problems, it's more Mass Effect. Why is this, though? What compels an industry whose entire business is bringing fictional worlds to life to so consistently bungle these massive projects? I mean, it's not like the money isn't there. Gaming's been larger than movies in dollar amount for years, so they obviously have a monetary motivation to get it right. So, what's the deal? Well, it is, very simply, that they don't care. The people directing and producing these movies, sometimes even the ones acting in them, all the way up to the management of the production companies, don't care about the intellectual properties. And with screenwriters who, in all likelihood, have never played a video game, let alone give a rat's ass about the one that they're making a movie about, means it's not hard to imagine why these projects always seem to go so poorly. Through a process like this, you end up with a movie that nobody likes. The actors, voice or otherwise, don't understand or care about their roles because the producers don't care about or understand the material they're working with, and the production company has a sour taste in its mouth going forward on these projects in particular because this supposed multi-million-dollar IP completely flopped as a movie. Worst of all, the fans are left with a husk of a movie wearing their favorite game's skin. And it seemed that every couple of years this process would just repeat itself. But then recently, we've been on a hot streak of great adaptations. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure it's a fluke that they're both on Netflix. But between Arcane and Edgerunners, it seems the luck of video game adaptations is finally turning around. There have been enough videos on why Arcane was good, but the reality of the situation is that Riot was going to make a good show no matter the cost. We know Riot can make their world look cool. Of course, there's a world of difference between a cool-looking music video and a season's worth of shows, but we're talking about the company that effectively bankrolls its own competitive scene. Between the obvious talent and the fat stacks, Arcane was going to be successful, even if Riot had to burn the barn down to make it happen. CDPR, with the release of Cyberpunk being less than ideal, didn't have such a great starting point. But what Riot and CDPR both had, what they both relied on, and I would argue the reason that these shows worked, is the same. a respect of and a love for their world, their characters, and their story. In an interview with the Neon Arcade, the writer and producer of Edgerunners, who has a Polish name, let slip the fact that Edgerunners has been in the works for 4 years.
The production timeline was... Sorry, how long was the production timeline?
Yeah, it was 4 years. It was...
4?
Think about that for a second. Even through the disastrous release of 2077 that nearly tanked the entire company, CDPR still found room for Edgerunners to continue development to completion for another 2 years. This doesn't make any sense from a business perspective. The game was supposed to be the anchor for the anime, get people hooked into the world and then feed them content from that world to keep them hooked. The game bombed. The show should have been canned. But it wasn't. This little tidbit shows that the commitment to the world, to the intellectual property that they'd been given, runs all the way up the company. Because I guarantee you the budget for Edgerunners came across upper management desk a few times over those 2 years, and every time they approved it. But we also see this commitment at the hands-on level of the company from an unlikely place.
Got the character design for Rebecca, and they were like, she's a loli. Lolis don't exist in Night City. It doesn't fit the Cyberpunk 2077 aesthetic. But Trigger was like, no, the loli must stay.
No, the lolly must stay. The obviously memeable response from Trigger was directed to a CDPR employee requesting the removal of Rebecca from Edgerunners. Why? Because lollies are not canon in Cyberpunk. Obviously, this interaction made a phenomenal meme, and Rebecca has become a bit of a fan favorite from the show. But what nobody seems to realize about this interaction is that it shows that at the ground level, there was an employee of CDPR who cared enough to stand up for the lore. She cared enough to say to Trigger that your character doesn't fit in our world. I'm glad she was overruled in that argument. I think the little gremlin is a charming character. But it shows us how deep that respect runs, and that members of CDPR are willing to push back against their partner when they step on the toes of their story. And despite the state of the game at release, these internal episodes show a culture of devotion within CDPR. Obviously, we may never get the full story on why Cyberpunk was released in the state that it was, but no matter the release, it's clear that CDPR stuck to their guns even through some incredibly bleak moments. They didn't kick the legs out on the IP as soon as things got tough. Instead, they doubled down on the artistic and business strategy they had set off with, and the beautiful thing is that it worked. Edgerunners was a blowout success, and it's easily one of my favorite shows of the year, and there are a lot of people that share that opinion. It was such a success that it completely resurrected Cyberpunk to the point that now, at the time of writing this script, Cyberpunk has player numbers in the ballpark of 50,000, meaning the only time they had more players was in the week of release. And to be clear, there are lots of people who can write a decent plot. The hero's journey has been done over and over and over again, but all the narrative skill in the world won't give you a story if the people doing the writing don't care. If the people doing the acting don't care, if the people bankrolling the thing don't care. But if they do, the good news is, it seems to work out pretty damn well.